So we have the following question in מבחן יישומים. Take a second, pause your screen and read it. Okay, so you're looking at this problem here, and let's first do away with what we know. Okay, the question is לפי הקווים המנחים. The question is essentially a question of שימוש לא מורשה. The שימוש לא מורשה that was done in Migrash 101. So all the information regarding Migrash 100 is really irrelevant. This whole concept here that the Heskem Chachira Mehuvan of Migrash 100, and that in effect they point out to you that he wasn't mimatzeh all the zechuyot of his Migrash. He only built 140 mar instead of 160 according to the zechuyot that he had, Kibol B'niyah, which was called you're left with 20 square meters. That's not binui b'foal. All that would be relevant if we cared about Migrash 100, but the question is really asking about Migrash 101, so that there's a lot of mesichim here that's just there to confuse you. That's number one. So all the information regarding Migrash 100 is really irrelevant, except for the fact of the Zuchiyot Taba, which is identical by both of them. Now, in terms of Migrash 101, what happened here? Well, you're told that he was polish into 101, and he built Yechidat Yor of 50 square meters. Now, the Shimush before, what he did was he built 50 square meters. Al Pitaba, we know that you can build a lot more in that Migrash. You can build 30, you have 30%, 60% Zchuyot B'niyah in the Migrash. So he actually built very little relative to what he could have in Migrash 101. In essence, his Plisha was a very kind of a minor thing. But the issue here, and here's where the Kavim Manchim come in. The Kavim Manchim, specifically the Kavim Manchim Chaf Zayin, Kavim Manchim Chaf Zayin points out actually a twist we do for this person. This person, he went against Rami, and he did a Shimush lo Moshe. What do? We come back on him, so to speak, l'chumra. We go hard on him. And we do the calculation, we pick and choose the calculation based on two possible ways of looking at the shovi. This is defined here in the Chalufot Hashuma. There's two Chalufot. The first Chalufa is to look at it in terms of the Shimush before, what he did there. What did he do? In our case, he built 50 square meters, very small. And I don't exactly know why, but you also consider the yazamut that he did. So you'd look at the value of the land, just the markiv hakarka of the shimush before a building 50 square meters, plus you would look at the value of the yazamut. Basically, it's another fancy way of saying, you would take the shovi banui of what he did, of building 50 square meters, minus just aliyot b'niyah, but including the yazamut. I think. It seems to be really just a complicated way of saying that. That's the first chalufat. So in our case, for the purposes of our מבחן, that would mean that just for the chalufa aleph of the kavim manchim, you would calculate the shovi banui, so to speak. You would calculate the shovi banui of building 50 square meters. That would mean the karka plus the aluyot b'niyah plus the yazamut, and then you would take away the aluyot b'niyah itself of the actual building, and you would then then you would have your shovi of the karka plus the yazamut. That's one chalufa, and on that we would be gozer what you would pay for the shimush. I don't fully understand how it works with Rami and how the yazamut plays in. I assume it's again something to the normal effect of the shimush of 6%. So that would be 6% of that value, or 6% of that value, chalufa aleph, or 6% of the Shimush lo Moshe of Chalufa Bet. Chalufa Bet is Kviat Shovi Ashuk Shel HaKarka b'Shimush Meitavi. Shimush Meitavi meaning the Shimush of the Taba. Whatever you're allowed to do. If the Taba allows you to build a skyscraper there and you built a little 50 square meter hut, we go very hard on you and we say, granted you only built 50 square meters, but you held up this land which could have used for a skyscraper, and therefore we're going to charge you the Dmei Shimush of 6% based on the Shovi Karka of a skyscraper. So that's why when it comes to this test question, you're going to have to do two calculations. One calculation for Chalufa Aleph of what's the shovi karka plus yazamut of building 50 square meters, which is the shimush b'foal, or what's the shovi karka of the shimush mitavi, i.e. dahainu, the shovi of the taba, which is this taba. Now, right away when looking at the question, you already know that you're going to go by chalufa bet, because you can already get a sense that 50 square meters relative to 60% of 300 is 180 square meters. So you can clearly see that the shovi of chalufa bet is going to be much higher than chalufa aleph, and therefore the answer of this question of the ma shovi hakarka hamerabi is going to be according to chalufa bet. What's left for us to do is to calculate chalufa bet. That's all was left to us to do. So once we know we're dealing with Chalufa Bet, and Chalufa Bet is the Shimush Hametavi, the Shimush of the Taba, Shimush of the Markiv HaKarka of the Taba, Lelo Pituach, Lelo Ma'am. So what we know then is what we're going to need the Shovi Mar Mevuneh to calculate the value of the Shovi Mevuneh of the Karka, and then we're going to have to take away Aliyot Pituach. And ma'am is not listed here, obviously, but it's 17%. These two pratim of the aluyot b'niyah yechidat dur and the yazamut, that's no longer relevant to us. Those are relevant if we wanted to calculate chalufa aleph, which we will anyway, just to show you how it works. But in principle, we really know that we're going to be doing chalufa bet, and we don't need that information. We don't need to know the aluyot b'niyah of the building materials, and we don't need to know the yazamut. So that's what's also there as a mesiach. So now let's just go and calculate, see how this is shown. So let's do both chalufa aleph and chalufa bet. So let's first do chalufa bet, because that's what we know is really the right answer. We'll do chalufa bet. For chalufa bet is the shimush meitavi, which is essentially saying the shimush apitaba. Okay, so for Alpitaba, we have to calculate what the Taba allows. The Taba allows for 180 Mar Ikari, 30 Mishitchei Shirut, and the Chatzer will be 180. You're left with, you calculate a Mar Akvi of 204 Mar Akvi Mevuneh for Alpi the Zchuyot B'Taba, and we're also told that it is 7,000 Shach per Mar Akvi, which yields you 240 times 7,000 is 1.68 million. This is now the shovi mivuneh, but it's kolel pituach, kolel ma'am. So we have to take off pituach, b'nikui pituach, nikui ma'am. Okay, and pituach, if you calculate it, you'll see we were told that the pituach is 100 shekel per karka, 300 per banui. Pituach comes out to a total of 93,000. So that if we take off the pituach, if we're going to take off the pituach, we have 1.587, and then binikui ma'am divided by 1.17 is 1.356, and that was in fact the right answer. That was the answer here of 1356 410. But it should be minikui. But just to show you chalufa aleph, just for the purposes of seeing the whole picture, if we had wanted to do chalufa aleph, so then we would go by the shimush b'foal, where the man built 50 square meters. So if he built 50 square meters, what would be the mar akvi, total mar akvi? He built 50 square meters. His chatzer then is going to be 200. That's going to be what? That's going to be a total mar akvi of 112.5 times your 7,000. 787,500. And now the aliyot b'niyah. So the aliyot b'niyah is going. We know that you're building 50 square meters at 5,000 shekel per square meter. So the aliyot b'niyah equals the 50 square meters you built times your 5,000, another 250,000. We'll add that. And then we have the yazamut. The yazamut being, we're told in the question, 15%, which is 155. And now, this is karka. And now, for the purposes of the chalufa aleph, you would be joining the shovi karka, which is the 787, plus the markiv yazamut, and you would discount, you would take out aliyot b'niyah, and you would come to 943,000, which was one of the mesichim here. That was question here, dalid. But obviously, again, 1.356 is much more than 943, and therefore the correct answer was gimel, that you go according to chalufa bet.